Alright, so today I'm going to show you how to change the main engine bearings on a Stihl BR600 leaf blower. Reason being, it's only 3 years old, I was out there in the yard, and I'm not sure if you can, basically you can see the bearings are shot. This thing is just wobbling around. I'm not going to show you how to disassemble the unit. There's plenty of videos on that. By the way, trying to get the fan disc off is an absolute bear. Don't use an impact wrench. I used an old KTM 350 spark plug. Put it in, obviously, the spark plug hole, which locks the engine up, and then you can torque it off. You have to use a long bar and put plenty of pressure on. It's really hard to get that off. But anyway, disassembled, and now I am going to, I've got a top dead center. I'm going to remove the timing cover here and just make sure I understand how the timing's set up, because I will be removing the crank. And everybody tells you to be careful, don't pull it out, it'll mess up the timing, but obviously I'm going to have to do that. So let's get into it. Oh, by the way, something I should have mentioned. So 3 years old, I look after this thing fairly well, I actually think very well. I only run it on ethanol-free gas. I use Motul synthetic 2T, 2-stroke oil. This is a very odd design of engine because it's a kind of a 4-stroke that runs in a 2-stroke mode. And I suspect that obviously the lower bearings weren't getting enough oil. But the thing didn't seize, it actually ran extremely well. And it was just because I could hear a strange sound, like a ch-ch-ch-ch noise, which I suspect was this bad boy, which sits here and spins, obviously, on the timing. And I think that the top here was actually rubbing against this magnet, the sensor, so the timing sensor. So just because it didn't break doesn't mean it's not failing. So lucky enough I caught it in time, and as I say, I'm now going to take the timing cover off. So let's go with this. Loose, yeah. Obviously I'm going to have to replace the seals, main bearing, which I haven't managed to find any videos online of anybody actually doing this. The dealer said it was too expensive to repair, I might as well throw it away, but this is a $600 blower, so I am determined to repair it. But I'm going to need new seals, new bearings, probably piston rings. I'm hoping the crank itself isn't shot, but we're about to find out. So let's put those in there, and now got one of these universal screwdriver sets, which I love. So useful. There's always one thing that fits. Right, how do I get this off? Leverage. Come on. Come on. Come on. Alright, that's quite it feels suspiciously tight. So I think this is actually glued on. It's like, oh, a gasket per se. And there is the timing shaft. And I can retrieve that probably easily enough with a little magnet here. There she is. Alright, so there's your cam. There's your camshaft sitting at top dead center. And I believe, there's this torch flashlight. Oh yeah, okay, so there's the arrows. There's a little arrow there going left and right, and I think it has to, oh there, okay, so there's a little raised indication there. So basically when these arrows are horizontal, I'll move all this in a second, that means the cylinder is at top dead center. So you can basically take the crank out, and as long as you restore it into this position, everything should be good. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pop that back on. So I've got the 2 pins, yes. Just put that back in there. Keep everything, have I got it the right way up? I have. So I've got these pins in place. We'll get back in. Oh, come on. Peep here. Oh, okay, that's one I can. Give it a little nudge. Come on. Okay, this pin is being a little difficult. But the good thing is there's oil there, which is good. Oh, there we go. Alright, good. Let's put a screw in just to keep it in place. that. And then I will take off the crank. Alright. Let's have a look at this bad boy. Okay, so pretty substantial. Things here. I'm actually doing this on my motorcycle ramp. It gives me plenty of space. Yep, good. Using a 1/8 socket, I think. What is this? Oh, a 1/4 inch socket. Okay. Let's see if we can get this off. I might have to put this in the vise. I'm not using the right one. That will probably help. Okay, no, maybe I am using the right one. Feels a little on the loose side. Alright, let me go and find the right tool. Okay, so that was a T27 star. So I just put that in there. Ice, just to give myself a little assistance, and then you just pop these off. Pretty straightforward, and it should expose the crank, and I'm looking forward to seeing what has happened. The amazing thing is the seals here, you can see that it's not tight against the seal at all, and yet the amount of oil that came out of the engine was not a great deal. Actually, it was a little weak, but you sort of expect that from a two-stroke anyway. I've got plenty of two-stroke motorcycles, so didn't cause me any concern. But it was just that slight change of sound that I could hear, this sort of noise, and that was the giveaway. Alright, so here are, come on, here we come. Right. So, engine turns over fine, there's no, as I said, ran like a champ. Very strange given how loose the bearings were, but I've seen there are others online that have had a similar problem. So, there we go. All four are out. Now, let's just see how we can get this off. Oh, wasn't too hard. Okay, here she comes. Okay, here's the crank. There's no metal there. Feels smooth. No sign of damage. Good. Okay, and here is the thing. Let's have a look. Actually, that does look, oh no, I thought it was rust. No, look at that. Look at that play. Wow, that is terrible. Funny thing though, it turns really smoothly. Look at that. That is really strange. I would have thought that would have graunched. There's no damage on the drive sprocket there, which is good. Engine turns over really smoothly. I've yet to check this bearing. Alright, so I'm about to take this out. 3, 2, 1, out you come. Of course I do have the manual, and I haven't bothered to look at it. I'm just going to give this a pull. Come on. Alright, where's my trusty rubber mallet? What's over there? Alright, pause. Okay, alright, let's just give this a tap. Perfect. Alright, and out she comes. Out she comes. Everything looks nice and oiled. There's plenty of oil in the crank. Alright, and obviously the rings. Piston moves smoothly. Alright, let's take her out. Okay, let's have a look. Okay. I said that doesn't look too bad actually. Look, there's plenty of oil. There's no damage. 2 rings, looking good. Piston hasn't seized. Small end. If I hold the conrod here and pull up and down, there's no obvious movement. If I hold the crank and move the big end here, uh-oh. Yeah, I can feel up and down play there. Look at that. Side to side play isn't sometimes normal, but is that up and down? A little bit of up and down. I'll have to check that. There's so much oil in this. And the bearing is smooth. There's no sign of metal. Normally with 2 strokes they run out of oil and then the things just explode. A little bit of movement there, yeah, I'm pushing in and out and I can just feel movement. I would suggest this there's a needle roller bearing there as well. How on earth is that gone? What about these bearings? Wow, look at those bearings. They are all over the place. And yet, funny enough, they're smooth. That is really strange. Wow, that thing is really all over the place. Yeah, there's some real lateral movement there, as you can see. Wow, I'm very surprised. I'm surprised I'm not seeing, given the state of the bearings, I'm surprised I'm not seeing more metal. I'm seeing plenty of oil. That is very strange. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the oil seals. No surprise there. Actually, let's get this off. And then I'm going to pull the bearings off and have a look. Oops. Okay, oh, by the way, let's have a look in the cylinder. Flashlight is here. Plenty of oil. Bit of carbon at the top, but to be expected. Yeah. It's a one-piece head. There's no way of taking the head off. So there's your ports. Very strange design, this, I have to confess. The valves are closed, which is what I would expect. But I'm not seeing any scarring on the cylinder. Everything looks great. There's plenty of oil. I'm not feeling any metal. Strange. Alright. Let me go and see if I can retrieve these bearings. Alright guys, for those, I'm sure you've seen this, I'm using the Harbor Freight bearing separator and puller kit. Cheap, but very effective. Slides over the bearing. Close her up. Also, I just need to tighten these nuts. And actually, I may be able to pull it off without even putting on the puller set. So let's see what happens. So tighten her up. This sort of slots in under the bearing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to protect this. I'm going to wrap that. A couple more sheets. Zip ties around it. Well, that's flailing around and cracking and damaging the piston and rings. So let's just protect the piston. I don't feel I need to take the piston off. So it'll save me having to get any more spare parts. I'm going to buy the bearings, I think, off eBay. I will check with the dealers to see how much they are going to charge, but obviously I'm not that impressed with the current bearings, so I'm going to try some other. Alright. Okay. Alright, so let's get back to the plot. Piston on one side, bearing being nipped up. I should just be able to squeeze it, tease it off. Try to get this thing in the center, which isn't proving to be very easy because the crank is a sort of an odd shape. I'm pulling it up against the crank. And I think what I'm going to have to do is post out. They're going to be needed. I'm going to turn this around so it's actually more on a vertical, because at the moment it's the crankshaft isn't a complete circle, so the puller is pulling off to one side. So I'm going to loosen it and I'm going to turn it. Of course, the piston's in the way. There you go. All right, I'll come back in a second. Okay, here we go. Piston seems to be set square. You can see it's against the crank. And now I just need to nip this up very slowly, a little bit on both sides. I may have to put this in the vise, but I'm just going to try this at first. So by nipping up these nuts, I should squeeze these jaws together, which are under the bearing, and the bearing's just going to pop off. So easy, he says. Soon find out. See what happens. Okay. So I'm assuming this is a press fit, and obviously the nut is turning as well. So let's get the wrench on here. Okay. All right. That side. On this side, try to keep it straight. It's not proving to be too hard. The bearing puller is under the bearing, so good things are going to happen any moment. So it's a lot easier to put in the vise, but I have to use the camera. Just keep cranking away, and it should. Now to obviously put it on, I'm going to have to freeze the crank, put the bearing in an oven. Straightforward. This is actually taking a lot longer than I was anticipating. I have to say, despite these bearings, Stihl does make good quality stuff. So yeah, it's definitely under the bearing. Is it coming off? You know what? I might. No, just keep going, and then I might have to put the actual puller unit on it as well if. Proves stubborn. Come on. Alright, 5 minutes. Alright, so I've got this pretty much clamped down. You can see that it's gone under between the bearing and the crank. Crank's still free, but the bearing is proving a little stubborn. So I'm going to pop on the whatever they call this little device. And we'll crank it, and the bearing will have no chance at all. You will be mine. So here we go. For those who haven't seen a bearing extractor, it's not like I do this super often, so it's been a while since I've done this, but how hard can it be? Okay, so it goes on to the end of the crank. Engage, yes, there. Okay, nip up these little nuts. Yep. Yep. And then I should be able to just crank on this. Okay, yes. Alright, here we go. So you will be mine. Yield, bearing, yield. So I'm obviously turning this shaft here, which is now going to pull. The piston's still free, yes. And this should pop off any minute now. Surprising how long it's taking. Oh, I think that's it. Yes, the bearing's off. There she goes. Alright, let's take this apart. And as you can see, if I take the bearing extractor off, the bearing has just slid off, didn't actually pop off. But I put that down to my superb lubrication. So there's no problem with lubrication as far as I'm concerned. Oh, what's the matter with these bearings? Alright, let's have a look. So here it is. Let's pull it off. There is your bearing, right? And that center shaft. Yep. Wibble is moving around. Funny enough, the bearings look fine, the balls themselves. It's smooth. That's really strange. Wow, there's no apparent damage to that at all. There's no sound. It's not graunchy. Ordinarily you would say that bearing is fine, but it's just so loose. That is strange. That is strange. I'd love to have Stihl's thoughts on this. Again, no damage. There's no damage at all. No damage at all. Everything looks fine. Alright, so now I'm going to do the same, except of course this time I'm going to have to pull off. Look at this bearing. Just all over the place. I'm going to remove this, this gear in the same way. So I'm going to put the clamp between the bearing. I could try to pull them both off at the same time, but I'm not. I'm assuming there's going to be a key under here to align the gear with the correct. But anyway, I'll set up the extractor and we'll get on with it. Alright, same arrangement for the gear. Bearing pullers under. I don't want to tighten it up super tight and actually crack one of the teeth off. So I'm just going to nip it up. I should of course check the manual. Keep cheating. So I'm just going to tighten this up here like this. Okay, that's about tight enough. And then, yeah, it's definitely under the teeth. It's under the teeth. The bearing puller is under the teeth. It's firmly against the bearing. So I'm going to get the extractor back in. Let's see if we can be successful. So let's get the washers on and the nuts. Washer the nut. Alright, here we go. So, you will yield to my power. No, that's pretty tight. Alright, you know what? I'm going to do something I rarely do, and I'm actually going to go and check the manual, because I don't want to strip any teeth off. I'm just wondering if I have to pull the bearing off with the gear at the same time. Alright, be right back. Alright, so I checked the manual online. There's a website, not mine, Manuals Lib, and they have the service manual. And according to this, we're supposed to replace the whole crankshaft if there's any damage, which is ludicrous, so I'm not going to do that, of course. So it does not tell you how to take off this gear. By the way, one thing I suddenly thought was, I'm relying on the fact there's a Woodruff key or some indicator as to how to put this gear back on in the right alignment, but I'm not necessarily convinced there is now. So I've cleaned it. I've noticed there's a serial number here, and I've basically realized that these two teeth correspond with the edge of the crank here, these two teeth with the edge of the crank here. So I'm basically going to take a photograph, and if there isn't a mark, I'm basically going to use that as a way to realign it, which won't be perfect, but it'll be good enough. Alright, back on with the bearing puller. And actually the bearing does move, of course, because it's so wobbly, so there's a fair amount of space under there. So the bearing puller should be able to get under those teeth and have good purchase. So let's see. Alright, let's try to get this gear off again. So this time, a little bit of torque. This feels a lot firmer than the bearing, I have to confess. Oop, bash the camera. Anyway, I'm tightening it up. Just a little bit on each side. Not too aggressive. Camera around a bit. See? Got my trusty GoPro here on a. So still getting some movement. It hasn't jammed, which is a good sign. Alright, you just crank away at this and we'll be back. Alright, so the extractor is well and truly under the gear. This is one of those, you got two opens with this, in a sense. No open, bob open, but we'll see what happens. I've got no other choice anyway. It's not like Stihl sells whole cranks. Well, I bet they do, but I can't imagine how much that will be. So let's give this a shot. Come on, go. Come on. Stand back here. Expect this to suddenly pop off. Alright, I'm just going to go for it. Let's go. Come on. Yes. Oh, success. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Right, so let's take that nuts off here. Bearing extractor out. And what did this bearing extractor cost me? I can't even remember. Typical Harbor Freight, probably about 20 bucks, but fantastic piece of kit. You wouldn't be able to do this any other way. There we are, there she is. Here she comes. And of course, there's no woodruff key. So I'm glad I took photographs of how to align that, because otherwise I would be snookered. Okay, good. All right, no damage at all. All of those are looking in perfect shape. Good. We are getting on with it, and let's have a look at this bearing. And it's all over the place. Good grief. That's it's amazing it didn't shatter. All right, rinse and repeat. I'm just going to pull this bearing off the same as the other one. All right, so I've managed to get both bearings out, and as you can see, there's just a lot of play in this bearing. Surprising, even though it's, you know, when now I push hard, yeah, it's rough-ish. So I'm going to take out the bearing spacer and actually remove the balls, and let's have a look and see what actual condition they're in. This is going to require a bit of patience, because I'm going to actually have to hook under and try to get that spacer out, and then I'll be able to take the inner race and drop all the balls out, and I'll just do it on one. So let's see what we can do. Okay, so I've got a range of tools. I've noticed there's like a plastic cover here. Here we go. And obviously the metal spacer, and I've decided that brute force and ignorance is absolutely the order of the day. So I'm going to take this little punch here, pop it down there. Of course, you know, the bearings died anyway. Let's have a look. Is that going to work? Am I going to do more damage? Who knows? Try to get this thing out. I'm just going to go either side of these balls. See if I can get this spacer ring separated. Is that coming out? No. Alright, I'm going to just spend some time tapping her on here, and I will get back when I have something to report. So this was actually easier than I expected. Not surprising when you're using a hammer. Just basically put the little screwdriver between the ball. Just give it some brute force, and everything starts to come out. Actually, this is a plastic. That's interesting. There's a plastic divide. Oh, okay, there we go. So it's actually plastic. I thought that was metal. And then, actually, tell you what, let's live large and get ourselves a fresh piece of paper. By the way, this fantastic mats, these are, oh, there's some of the balls. This, of course, is for dogs, by all accounts, pets. And it just soaks up all those oils. Here come all the balls, there they come. All falling out. Make sure the camera's on that. You can see this, guys? Alright, let's have a look. So, there's the balls. I, of course, forgot to count how many there were. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, they're all here. Alrighty, let's have a look at the inner bearing race, which of course is surprisingly smooth. What did I do with that flashlight? Here we go. Look at that. Look, there's no damage there. And these balls feel fine. This is really strange. Let's try wiping some of the oil off here. Of course, someone's going to tell me that this bearing was fine. It was all in my mind. A little wobble on a few main bearings, nothing to worry about. But I find that a little strange. So I'm just cleaning off some of the oil. Let's have a look on the inside here. Look at that. Shiny. Shiny. Let's get my trusty little pick here. That is smooth. Isn't this the strangest thing? Maybe the bearing's supposed to wobble, but I can't believe that because a seal. Look at that. That looks fine. It's almost like they put the balls in were too small. I can't believe that either. That is odd. Anyway, I've ordered new bearings and seals from eBay. Your friends at eBay, and they should be here in about a week. So I will pause this video. That was unexpected. I really was expecting. If I put a ball in here, roll it around, just rolling it around, you know, it feels smooth. I'm sort of sliding it in that trench, in that. And it's not as if it's picking up anything on the inside. That is really the strangest thing. Alright, so I'm going to pause at this stage and I will be back in about a week, hopefully with the new bearings, and we will pick it up and rebuild it. Thanks guys.